Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, this is Kat Miller. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2011, and I am here talking with Dane Kirby, our shaman. Welcome, Dane.
Thank you much. And as usual, I'm always glad to be here. I know it's going to be a fun conversation.
Isn't it always? I never know where it's going to go. I've had people ask me, so what are you going to be talking with Dane about today? And I go, I have no idea. It's like the show is about to start. Yeah, I know.
That's part of the fun for us, though, is it's not a scripted ahead thing and, okay, here's your homework, we want this. And that's why you and I have so much fun with it, because we're just going to go with it and stream of consciousness or just willy-nilly, take your pick, wag, one of those, and we're going to have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I talked with you just a little while ago before the podcast, and then I talked to another friend, and I had such a fun experience between in the last half hour. I always love, of course, the healing effects, the going in and clearing things and balancing. Mm-hmm. And this friend told me that they had started to experience some allergies, and they have a long history of allergies. And so I said, hey, well, give me a call, and let's see what we can do. So he gave me a quick call, and I talked with him, and I had him do a few things. First of all, one of his eyes was itching, and he says the way it always goes is one of the eyes starts to itch, and then it gets down into the throat, and then the other eye, and then it just begins to become a really full-blown thing. And by the time he tries not to take any medication for his allergies, he says, but by the time I have spent 24 hours feeling totally weak and exhausted and with all of this itching and inflammation going on, I break down and I take an allergy pill, and then usually I don't have to take more than the one. I said, well, okay, you got one eye itching at this point. Sounds to me like a great time to just kick it all out. So I balanced his lungs for the whatever that was in the air that was bothering him. I do a couple of different things there. First of all, I like to get to the air that is deep in the lungs, that's been there for a while, and then I do the air that they're breathing right at that time. After I did that, I had him connect up his eye, because after all, he was complaining about the itching in the eye. So I did that. And this is something that's really kind of interesting that people may want to know, is that, first of all, most allergies, or the most common organ that is involved in allergies, any kind of allergies, is the liver. There are 6 different organs that are sometimes involved in allergies, and it's a disharmony in the body between whatever you are experiencing hypersensitivity or allergy symptoms to and that organ. And those 6 organs are the liver, the gallbladder. Those 2 are the most common. The valves of Houston, the ileocecal valve, the pituitary, and the pineal. And there's one more that, if it's a milk allergy, it may go to one of the kidneys. I don't know why it is, but milk seems to be more often than not related to the kidneys. Anyway, as you saw, I listed the liver first because it really is the most common denominator when it comes to allergies. If you have multiple allergies, chances are liver's out of balance. But liver is also responsible for eyes. You ever hear the saying, I'm seeing red, or you're seeing red and he's so angry he's seeing red? That's literally telling you the connection between the liver and the eyes. So, itchy eyes related to allergies It's coming from the liver. Interesting, yeah, eh?
Well, see, now I've got a couple of images of, man, my liver sneezing. That just feels rough. And then my liver trying to scratch itself as it itches. You got me on a couple there. I'm like, ooh, I might have a few nightmares off of that one. Good liver, you know. Pat it on its head, you know.
But all I did was, after I did the things with the air, I connected the eyes to the liver to show the body, basically, liver here is compromised and it's causing the problems with the eye. Actually, what you do in the work that I do is you find the weakness, like the eyes are weak, and then you try to find an organ that strengthens it. So I get a weakness. I use the reflex muscle testing to find the weakness, and then I connect it to whatever until I find something that strengthens it, and then I balance whatever it is that needs to be balanced. So, of course, in this case, it was obviously the liver. Once I did that, he said that the itching was gone, completely gone. And he kept saying that. We talked for a few more minutes, and he says, okay, I'm kind of freaked out here. My eye is not itching. He got back to his desk and sent me messages on Messenger saying, okay, I'm freaked out. My eye is still not itching.
Isn't it amazing how he misses his pain?
It's like, let it go, let it go. Well, I think it's more of, okay, I have not really experienced energy work before. I don't understand how this works. You are in Arizona. You are more than 1,000 miles away. How is it possible that you doing something there has made a difference for me here?
Right.
And you want to hear my first experience with this remote stuff?
Go for it.
It freaked me out. My daughter, as you know, had multi-chemical sensitivity. And she had Dr. Randall Frank, who is the developer of natural healing, work with her. Actually, with his EI, he calls it environmental insensitivity. Most commonly in medical terms, they call it environmental illness. Anyway, he works with her. She was the first patient he worked with his environmental illness or environmental insensitivity vial to clear her allergies. And this was back in late 2002. Well, several months later, she was down in Texas visiting her then boyfriend's family. And she called me up and said, Mom, I need EI reset. And I was sitting there, okay. And she just kind of chuckled at me because you could tell by the tone of my voice. I had no idea what she was talking about. What do you mean I need to reset it? You're like 1,000 miles away from me. She says, okay, Mom, I'm just standing in front of you. Please reset EI. Okay. So, in my mind, I took my EI vial and I went to do a reset on her. And then the next thing she said blew me away. She says, Mom, you need bio too. She knew. She could tell from where she was in Texas and I was in Salt Lake that I was visualizing the EI vial in my hand and going to do a reset, and that I didn't have the Bio2 vial visualized in my hand.
Right.
These are vials that are in the natural healing work. And so then I went ahead and I did the reset with the EI and the natural healing, and the 2 vials. And after I did that, she said, "Thanks, Mom. That's made a big difference." And then she sat there for a minute. And she said, "But there's still something else. There's something in the air that is bothering me." And I stretched back and remembered the first time that I had seen Dr. Frank and something that he had done with her that wasn't actually taught in the natural healing work that I learned from him. And I did it for clearing the air in her lungs, harmonizing her with the air that she was breathing down there. And as soon as I finished doing it, she said, "Wow, thanks, Mom. What did you just do? Because, whoa, I'm cleared." And I told her what I'd done. And then I hung up the phone. And I spent the next 10 minutes kind of sitting in a daze at my desk going, what just happened? It was very clear, first of all, that she was feeling what it was I was doing, and secondly, that she was aware of what it was that I was doing. Since then, that was back in, probably June or July of 2003, and so obviously since then I've done a lot of remote stuff, and it's second nature to me, and it doesn't blow me away like it used to anymore.
Well, those big leaps will do it to you, though, but aren't they fun?
Oh, they are. They are. And
having said that, something that I encounter with a lot of folks is they've forgotten how to take a leap of faith for themselves. The day-to-day job has just got them in the day-to-day job mode or the box mode, or you go to the 9 to 5, you come home, you wrestle with your 2.5 kids, then you sit there and watch something on the deadhead box, and then you hop in the sack and go to sleep with the hubby or the wife. Then you wake up in the morning and do it all again. And there's so many miraculous moments throughout your entire day. They never stop, even when you're asleep. Actually, I would say especially when you're asleep, they actually increase. But people have gotten trained out of looking for those moments or being in those moments, and that they can take care of themselves like what you're describing and what you've done. That we're all connected at the source and with each other. So it's something that they just don't think about. They can do it. They just don't think about it. I mean, I'm no exception to the rule here. The majority of people, there's people I can teach this to quite simply, and there are people that I can teach what I do to that it'll take me longer. But for the most part, most people can learn to do what I do, and they may not do it the way I do it, but it's a learned thing, just like what you do. You were taught it, and you've taught it to other people. You've taught me a couple things, and I said, wow, that's the easier way to do it, So it's a case of people get patterned in. We were talking about it before you started recording tonight, that when I'm talking with somebody that's not with me, or even if they're with me, it really doesn't matter, but generally, like if we're on the phone long distance doing a consult or something like that, that they're like, wow, I feel better just talking and listening to you and just interacting with you. And they're like, are you using your energy and to help me out and everything? And it's a yes-no thing. And it comes down to, no, I'm not using my energy, but yes, I am using energy to help them, and all they're doing is getting reconnected to the source that we all come from, because I'm connected to it at all times, and I might as well say I swim in it at all times. So if you're talking with me or around me, or if I touch you, then I'm reestablishing your connection automatically. And that's what a shaman does. We make sure that you're reconnected to the great what is, so that you can be better, so that you are free of dis-ease, that kind of thing. And that really comes down to a nutshell what the whole shamanic thing is. You can put as many rituals as you want on it to get it there, to make it look pretty for the tourist, that kind of thing. But it's just like what you did with your daughter. There's nothing, it doesn't have to be complicated in any form. Rituals make it easier in some ways, and then a lot of times rituals just become part of the culture of it. until
Exactly.
so. Wow. Okay, there's my long speech. I'm done. See you later.
We want to know what it is that was done. We want to have visual association. We want to have verbal. We want to, as humans, we want to put a label on everything. We want to understand things. We want to add meaning to things. It's just natural. It's how we are. And so to try to explain the unexplainable, we put labels. We just give so much. It just right here, I'm reminded of what Dr. Viktor Frankl of Total Body Modification had to say about TBM's Module 4. TBM has, I don't know if it still has in it 4 modules or not. It may only have the 3 modules now because Dr. Frank passed on last year. But in reference to Module 4, he was known to say frequently that Module 4 is unteachable, unlearnable, and unrepeatable.
You either get it or you don't.
Basically, yes. And I believe that that's why I don't think that it's being taught now, because those who have TBM at this point in time, I'm not so sure that they have the connection needed to be able to lead people through Module 4. I may be wrong. I guess I could go and look and see if they are offering a Module 4 at this point in time. But I was blessed with the ability to go through Module 4 2 different times. And the 2 times that I went through it, they were completely and totally different. But I kind of think that that's what we're talking about here as far as it goes. I think as far as it goes with Reiki, with shamanship, with many different healing techniques. It's unteachable, unlearnable, and unrepeatable. And it is basically getting an aha moment where all of a sudden you just have the knowledge. It's just become part of you.
That's it. Definitely. In my case, when it originally started, we'll say the modern phase of it, even though I was taught it as a child, when I decided to come back home, would be a good way of saying it. This would have been right after my dad died. I was over in Isle of Man in the Irish Sea between England and Ireland. It's a place he'd always wanted to go. He never did. So I went over there to give him a proper sing and to bury him. And it had happened before, but at this time, when you're sitting on a ferry, and all of us, the ferry ride from heading back into England, the world around me as we know it here today disappeared, and in its place, the vision came. I'm not going to go into details about what the vision was, but that's how I learned a lot of what I know. The vision shows up, replaces this reality. This reality is gone for my sense and all intents and purposes, but it's amazing how every single time it sets it up to where I'm in the perfect place to do it. I happen to be sitting in a really nice, comfortable chair on this ferry boat. The ferry ride was 3 hours. It had just started. I had just had a fantastic dinner. And all of a sudden, on this crowded ferry boat, everybody left the room and nobody was around me. And for the next, until the ferry docked, about 20 minutes before the ferry docked, and then a preacher that I had met in my journeys on Isle of Man, he was on the same ferry ride, and he found me about 20 minutes before the ferry docked. And when I came back to this reality, he was sitting in the chair across from me, and he looked at me and he said, so, well, I'm not even going to try and imitate his accent. I'd be awful at it. But he said, so, what's it like to talk to God for 2 hours like you just did? And I looked at him, and I mean, I don't think of it in those terms. At least I definitely didn't back then. It's just what is. The great I am, okay? And so we sat there and spent a few minutes, and I said, well, I'm still cooking with it, so let's share. You're a man of the cloth here. Let's do this. And I got my hands on him and took him with me. And it was the coolest thing in the world, but that's how I learned or started learning the unknowables, the things that can't be taught. Because the only way you can learn a lot of it is by direct experience.
Exactly.
Being taught, like you and me, we both know that when we sit there and put a hand on each other to do an adjustment or something like that, that we're actually learning directly through each other. You and I don't work together.
I spent an awful lot of time when I was there in Michigan with my hands on your shoulders, your back, your neck, your...
And yes, I'm incredibly good looking, and all women do this around me. But no, it's a case of that's how you and I learn. We learn directly from the source, the great I am. And I'll have people that'll throw a fit when I say this and say, "Oh, how dare you? You can't say that. It's unknowable. It's this. It's that. You have to go through these 500 rituals. It's a long distance phone call." I'm like, no, it isn't. We are born as the divine. We are a piece of it. What in the world makes you think that it's a long-distance phone call to talk to the great I am? That you can't hear, interact, and be a part of the great I am every instant of your life? You are. If you don't believe you are, that's because your ego or your consciousness is shut you away from it, but it's still there. So it's a choice for people. Step into the flow and become part of the great I am completely and totally, and watch your life take off for the better. Or not. Take your pick. And that's the biggest shock people get in dealing with me. If the person needs a ritual, I'll do a ritual, really. I mean, I love a beautiful ritual. I really do, and it does help me focus. But for the most part, and for most of what I do, I don't need a ritual. I do them because they're comforting, and they also allow the person that's with me time to integrate and be comfortable.
Exactly.
But when it comes down to it, we're all part of the great I am, and it's literally just a case of somebody dialing the knob up for you or flipping the switch, that kind of thing. And even for myself to this day, there's times I have gotten in my own way about that. That's for launching my own website and for launching the Peace and Power series that I do. It took me longer than I believe it should have, but then as my wife said, it took you exactly as long as it was supposed to. But I had so much invested in it that I let my own ego get in the way. So, folks, if you get hung up and something's really jerking your chain, find somebody that's balanced in their life, that they do believe in doing better for others, that they have your best interests at heart, and they talk to me and say, look, I could use some advice. And it's amazing how we can hang ourselves with our ego. And the ego is quite useful. Actually, ego can be incredibly useful as long as you're using it as a tool and it hasn't turned you into the tool. And that's the big trick in most modern society these days, is we've let our ego turn us into the tool.
The ego and our storyteller, because beyond ego is your little storyteller that makes up as it's going along the way. And then your ego tries to justify whatever your little storyteller has to say. But we do. We make up stories about everything. Why did you choose this? Like, I could ask you, why did you choose to settle in Michigan when you chose to settle in Michigan? And you can tell me a huge story, and it's probably grown over the years. How long have you been in Michigan?
21 years.
Okay, so it's had 21 years for that story to grow. And I can about guarantee you that what you would have said 21 years ago about why you settled in Michigan would be a whole different story from what you tell me today.
Oh, yes.
That's because your storyteller has had all this time to really make up the reasons why you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no need for reasons why you do anything. You just do.
Right.
What if you could just do?
Mm-hmm.
Not have to have a reason why you did it. Not have to explain yourself. But we don't accept that, do we?
It's got to hurt, don't you know?
Well, if I ask you, why did you, just a minute ago, when I asked you, why did you settle in Michigan, you had all kinds of stuff come into your head, and you were prepared to answer me with a whole bunch of stuff, weren't you?
Surely. And I was actually going to have to pick. And I was like, well, do I tell you the original reason, or do I tell you why I'm still here? So, yeah.
And so somebody saying why makes your storyteller go into hyper mode. And, man, if you don't have a story available to tell them, you're going to start hunting for one.
Yep.
And you're going to build a story. You can't say, and it's very human to do this way, you can't say, because I chose to settle in Michigan. Got to be a reason.
Yep.
Whether there is or not, we want a reason.
And, you know, those very things like that, I've seen when I used to do international business, I've seen people's culture used against them just because they don't know how to tell a story, or they'll change the timing on the person they're dealing with and drive the person insane until they get the deal they want, just because the other person couldn't adapt to the story that was being told. When I was a little kid living in South Carolina, I was the youngest of the group of kids in the area, and so I was 4 or 5, right in there. We once a week we'd all get together, and the adults would let us go down the road to the candy store, gas station, you know, the nickel bag, that kind of thing of candy and all this. And we would sit there and spend hours with the old man that owned the station, because he loved kids, and he'd put us to work for, you know, here, do this for me, do this, and hey, you know, you help me out today, have a free soda, that kind of thing. And his favorite game, and to him it truly was a game, he just loved it. This was back in the days of full-service gas, for everybody that's under 30 that doesn't know about those kind of things, where the guy actually would go up and pump your gas and change your oil and clean your windshield. And he loved it when somebody would come in from New York or New Jersey, because they'd come screaming into the station. They'd hit that horn, even though they had already ran over the sounding bell telling you that the car was there. And he'd be sitting out right there, 30 feet from them, in a nice chair, you know, comfortable in front of the gas station, enjoying the weather. And he always loved it. He would tell us, okay, folks, going to teach you how to negotiate. You know, these big words he liked to use. This is how you negotiate with one of them Yankee fellows that's always in a rush and just doesn't know how to slow down. I'm going to help him get better. And he would take 2 minutes to walk that 20 feet to the person's car. And he would find something on the ground to reach over and pick up, and then maybe walk it back to one of us, tell us to do something with it, one of the kids. Then he'd be strolling back. And he only really did this to the guys. He said that, you know, it was just fun with the guys. He said the women understood what he was doing, and they didn't have a problem with it. You know, they loved it. But he said he loved doing it to the guys that he could tell that were just so wound up, you know, and so like, oh, my God, I'm down here in Hickville, you know, attitude. And by the time he'd get to that car, the person's just already, you know, their blood pressure's already shot through the roof. And he's just confirmed every single thing this person dreaded about being in the Deep South, that, oh my God, I'm surrounded by these slowpoke hicks, they're not even human, you know, this kind of thing. And he would, you want high test, or do you want regular? And I mean, literally, he would take 10, 15 minutes to fill that car up. And half the time, you'd see these people just, before he even got all the way to the car to help them, they're just like, oh, forget it, and they'd tear out of the station and go down the road. And he looked at it like it was his civic duty to help one human being learn to slow down by doing that. But it was a case of, that was his story, that he would sit there and, by teaching by example, he would show us that you can control the world around you totally just by living your story to the fullest. He said, now the trick is, just to make sure that the story you tell yourself isn't a lie. And it took me a long time to understand that. And by the time I truly did understand that, I was probably sitting on the Isle of Man. My dad had died the year earlier. This would have been 95. I was sitting there before I truly clicked on that. So we're talking 33 years after I was born, 28 years later after he had taught me, I finally understood what he meant by that. And I found out by that time that my story was deeply into something not connected to, one, reality per se, and I don't mean the reality as it is here, but the reality I should be living, and my life as I wanted to live it. Mm-hmm. Then I realized I got to change my story. And I got to change it to the story, the great I am, which means in my own right, I am great. And that applies to every single human being on the planet, by the way. This isn't just me or just Kat. The great I am applies to all of us, because without the great I am, we don't have a spark. So what's your story is my question to you. And it can be a real story for what you're living in for your day, but is it the story you should be living?
Is it the story you want to be living?
Right. Are you lying to yourself? Or is the case of you're not even lying to yourself? It's like Kat was saying, that the storyteller will change that story as much as it needs to fit in. Mm-hmm. Have you been fitting in so long that now you've disconnected yourself from your great I am?
You talked about you need to be honest and not lie about your reality. And where I'm sitting, people don't have a clue. Most people don't have a clue what the reality is, what the story is. And and after you said that, you came back to it a few minutes later and pointed out that the reality is what is it you want.
Mm-hmm. And do you even know anymore?
Yeah, not what is it that other people want, mm-hmm. Not what is it that society wants from you, not what is it that you think your parents want or your children want.
Yeah, that's the crusher there for sure. Yeah.
Oh, who was it I was talking with earlier? Was it earlier today? Or maybe it was yesterday? I was talking to somebody. Oh! This is how in touch I am with myself, Dane.
Which Kat are we talking with now?
I was talking with Carrie earlier
mm-hmm.
today, mm-hmm. and Garden Party. You know Ricky Nelson's song?
Mm-hmm.
I went to a garden party to reminisce with my old friends. And Kat can't carry a tune, but that's another story. I told her, you need to listen to that song and just really listen to the lyrics and hear them. Hear what he is saying. Because this is where we wind up not experiencing life the way we want to, because mm-hmm. you can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself.
Actually, you're the only one you can please.
Yes, because what you think somebody else wants from you is probably not what they want. And in fact, even if they tell you what they want from you, chances are they don't know what they really want from you, and they're telling you something that really they don't want.
Right.
And so instead of trying to please everybody and trying to do things that are to support something or because you want to make things better for somebody else or whatever, you got to look at it as what is it that I want? Because mm-hmm. I am an important being. And when somebody tells you you are selfish, what you are doing is very selfish. what they're really saying is, I'm a very selfish person, and I want you to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
And because you have chosen to do for you, you are selfish.
Yep.
It's really the way it goes. That is what we see. This is what it is. And so quit trying to please the world. Quit worrying about what everybody else thinks of you, because you know what? You are a pretty special, pretty important person. And you will find the right focus. Remember, saying what I don't want, it's not going to get you what you want.
That's it.
You got to put the focus. What is it that you want? And if you start talking about what you want and you hear yourself saying, well, I don't want to, whoa, wait, stop, pull the reins in. What were you just saying? You don't want to? Okay, you're standing in that I don't want. Pivot.
That's it.
There's another end. What's behind the I don't want? Because there is something you do want. Let's change our focus. Because I'm telling you, folks, if you are standing in a space of stating, I don't want, you are staring in the face of what you don't want. It is coming to you, and it's coming to you probably pretty quickly.
That's it. The freight train's coming.
Yep.
The how long ago was this? Well, it must have been a long time ago, because it's back when I still thought that tequila was worth drinking. So this would have been 30 years ago. And a bunch of us, I was still in the military at the time, a bunch of us were all sitting around, and we were communing with the god of tequila, which, oof, boy, glad I don't do that stuff anymore. But it's amazing how out of something like that, something profound does come out. And at that time, it's amazing. Most of us were bitching and complaining about our parents. We were all these angry young men that, our parents this, our parents that, that's the reason we're in the military, just to get away from them. We didn't have any other options, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And one of the guys, just out of the blue, you could see this flash. I believe one of my South American friends called it relampango. The spiritual lightning just electrocuted him. He got hit with something so hard that he ended up instantly sober. That's why one of the reasons I remember this. It's like, whoa, what just happened to him? And he sat there and looked at us, and he said, but guys, don't you understand? We are the products of our parents' failures. And we were all basically drunk enough to actually understand what he said at the time, because we didn't have our young, stupid ego barriers in the way. But it came down to, your parents want for you what they didn't have. That means everything they could not do, were unable to do, the things that they did not want yet were in their life, they wanted to make sure you had. So basically, my dad, he always wanted me to be a pharmacist or something like that, all these things that he felt he had failed at. Well, he wanted his failures for me. So in a lot of ways, a lot of folks out there are the product of their parents' failures. Now, was my dad a failure? Not a chance. The man was a specialist. He was hired all over the country to go build custom skyscrapers, very unusual buildings, very tricky situation things. The man was an incredible success. But at several levels, he felt he was a failure because he didn't have a degree. I don't even think he GED'd high school. He was 35 years old finally. Things like that. The man wasn't a failure, but at some level he thought he was. So here was this spark of truth that, wow, are we the product of our parents' failures? And again, I'm not saying that your parents failed, so here's what you are. I'm saying it, the things they did not have, they want you to have. They felt that since they did not have them, they had failed, so they wanted better for you. So if you've been raised that way, look at what you have to deal with and get rid of so that you can understand what you want and what your story truly is.
I have one other thing to add to that,
Go for it.
and that is not only are we their failures, but we're their successes too.
And that's the wonderful thing, but the way they teach it to us, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it doesn't come out that way. But that's what your parents ultimately want for you, is to be their success.
No. I don't think you quite caught what I'm talking about. Things that they found, that they loved, that they love about themselves, they've also shared with you. And very often, you have mimicked that positive thing about them. So what I'm saying is we may be their failures, but we're also their successes.
Totally.
So it's not all about the things that they really wanted, that they couldn't have, that they were determined to give you, but it's also about the things they loved about themselves and about their lives that they also gave you and shared with you. So I just kind of wanted to add a little addendum.
Oh, totally. Now, the question being, though, for most people you encounter that are looking for help or things like that, which way do they seem to be living? And that's unfortunately the issue. Your folks want the best for you, but which part of that are you living off of? Are you living off of the whole picture, understanding that, yeah, they're just human, and they wanted the best for you, even if they did not, that whole thing about, we're living their failures? Which, are you living their whole story, or have you just decided to be like, oh man, my dad wanted me to be a pharmacist and I didn't, and now I'm doing this and I'm not happy in it, so look at me, now I'm not? Or are you actually living your story saying, Dad wanted me to be a pharmacist and I understood why, but I also understood that's not who I am, but I am living this story and it's taking me exactly where I want to be. And in that respect, you have become your own I am.
What if the parent's job is just to show you all kinds of different choices? They show you the ability to do things that they weren't able to accomplish, that they didn't see themselves. They show you places where you can have success where they had failure. And then they show you places where they are very happy with themselves and their lives and give you the opportunity to succeed there. So they are giving you opportunities for success in many different spheres, but it is all about you choosing. And the child doesn't necessarily see that the parent is giving them the opportunity to make choices. So very, very often the child sees it as the parent is making them do it. You could have chosen to see that your dad's desire for you to go into the pharmaceutical industry was something that he was forcing you to do. And you may have gone down that road and done that and been totally miserable because you were fulfilling someone else's dream, not your own dream.
Right.
And you could have gone down it with the attitude, look at what my father has given me, this direction is something, and it's such a blessing that I had a father that was willing to share this opportunity with me. Yeah, there are so many different ways you could take it, and it's your choice whether you go down the roads that your parents light for you or you don't, but it's your choice. And when you find yourself resenting your parents for the light, the path that they lit for you, you're the one that chose to go down that path.
That's it.
And if you chose not to go down that path, and you feel like you're failing your parents because you didn't, got news for you. You can't ever fail your parents. All your parents ever wanted was for you to have a successful, happy life, wherever it takes you.
That's it. So let's take it back to the original question you asked me earlier of my story of why have I stayed in Michigan? And is my story different now than it would have been 21 years ago when I first came here? How many people still relate to their parents? Their story is through the eyes of that child that felt like their arms were getting twisted down a path they didn't want to go. That they haven't changed their story and updated it in relation to their family, their parents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, think about it. Is it time to let it go?
Update that story, folks.
Yeah. It's your life.
You're
living it.
Yeah.
Decide. What do you want?
Yeah. That's it.
It's no longer, you can't blame someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, it comes down to it, Kat, and I can tell you all the cool things in the world, but until you decide to reach out and embrace the cool things, Kat, that was something you and I had talked about at one time, and you surprised me with it. It wasn't just about letting go. You said something else.
What'd I say?
It was one of those 2 a.m. conversations we were having when we were working at the hospital. I'll think about it. It'll come back to me. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, we are getting a bit long today. We're hitting a point where we should probably close it off. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what I said. Yeah, that profound 2 o'clock in the morning stuff.
Yeah, one of those things. And it didn't even involve tequila. Yay!
Yeah, it did involve a couple of tired, batty people, though.
Oh, I tell you, yeah, heavy on the baddie.
Yeah, there were some very late nights there.
Yeah.
And
they were well worth it.
Yes, it absolutely was. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and close this Talkcast down, and it is so much fun to talk with you, Dane. I never know where we're going to go, and it's always somewhere that is interesting and fun.
Well, this definitely wasn't where we expected to be tonight, was it? But it's turned out beautiful.
Yes, it certainly did. It's been just an absolute joy, and I loved the conversation I had with your wife earlier.
Oh, good.
I appreciate you sharing her with me and her sharing you with me, letting me have a piece of both of you.
There you go.
Lots and lots of fun. And I do see this podcast as being one that says, hey, go look up Ricky Nelson. Listen to Garden Party. Mm-hmm. Listen.
Oh, and a quick one here for you, Kat.
Yes.
I had mentioned on The Secret, we had talked about that in the last podcast we were doing, and I had said that The Secret actually was just a chapter out of a book.
Uh-huh.
Well, the original book, the modern version of it is called The Secret of the Ages by Robert Collier, but the original book itself was called The Secret of the Ages, published in 1925, but it did change its title. It was originally published as, The Book of Life, 1925, and it changed it in 26 to The Secret of the Ages, and then there's a newer version that the man edited and expanded in 1948 before he died, and I would tell people go get the book, because in The Secret she didn't say it directly, but everything she did was about taking action once you implemented The Secret, and people just didn't seem to understand that. Mm-hmm. But if you want the whole book, from what I've been able to tell it comes from, it's called The Secret of the Ages by Robert Collier.
Okay. Very good. And that would be Collier?
Yes.
Okay, Robert Collier.
Yep.
Very good. That's awesome to have that connect back in so that we can look into it and perhaps glean some information from that. But yeah, exactly. Yes, your story make it reality, but make it the reality that you want, that is really you, that is really what you want, not what you think that so-and-so would like for you to have or to be. It's not about what your wife wants. Because let me tell you, if you try to please your wife by doing what she thinks she wants or what you think she wants, you're going to, first of all, begin to resent that she is trying to control you. And secondly, you're never going to figure out exactly what it is that she really wants. And so you're not going to please her either. She didn't marry you because of what you might be able to do for her. She married you for the you that you are. So quit trying to be her. Quit trying to be what you think she wants you to be. Quit trying to be something you're not.
Hey, dear, you better be careful. Aren't you giving away secrets? They might revoke your women's card.
Oh, that was revoked in, what, maybe the year I got married? I don't know, maybe the year before that.
You might be a woman without a country here soon, you know. She's giving away our secrets.
My husband looks at me and says, I don't think you belong to the category of woman sometimes. He calls me a typical woman. I am not a typical woman. I am an atypical woman. But that's okay.
That's okay. I just tell people you're my friend Abby Normal.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the name Cat, well, what do cats do? Cats are very independent. Cats love to be cuddled and hugged. They love to be close to the ones they love. And I can be very much a cat around my husband. I love to be cuddled. I love to be hugged. And, you know, it's like whenever he looks at me funny about something that I do, I say, you married a cat. What can I say? Oh, the things we do. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here, but there is one thing. I would love to have you read over some of the animal wisdom that we have at Blue Iris. Okay. Let me know any thoughts you have. If there are any, I have over 300 animals there, I believe. Okay. And if there are any that you have any thoughts about, please let me know. Because I can always explain that in terms of how it worked for me originally and how it definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I definitely ended up with the totem that was like, oh, dear God, are you kidding me? Why this one? So, yeah, we can talk about that next week. No problem. Yeah, that might be something that would be fun to do. I have frequently been in updating different animals. It just kind of varies. I have the original stuff on them, and then somebody occasionally will say something about one of them, and I go in and I research it more to see what else there is beyond what I currently have on there. And so you will find that some of the animals listed there have extensive information on them, and some of them just have a small amount. But I would love to get your perspective on any of them that you feel inclined to give me any thoughts on. And if there are any animals that are not listed there, it'd be great. I don't have any connection to anything or need to say, no, you can't use this one or whatever. It'd be interesting. Yeah, sure. So perhaps, no worries. Perhaps we have a subject set for next week. Who knows? Yeah, sure. Find out, right? Sure, we do. Well, you have a marvelous week. Give a big hug to your wife and your little girl, and we will talk with you later, Dane. Sounds good, darling. See you soon. Okay.